2026 is 9 months to go.
Eish. Only
9 short months. You're ready? On your marks.
Set, as we used to say.
Set, go.
Yeah.
You're ready.
Yes.
The economic front is ready.
We are actively, we had the Central Committee meeting in April this year, and the issue of our participation in the 2026 elections came up. We didn't conclusively deal with it. We have another Central Committee meeting in December, which will certainly seal that program.
Okay.
So we are almost there.
Almost there.
Yeah.
Okay. State Council, today I really do want to focus on something that transpired, I think it was last week.
Yeah.
And the reason why I want to talk about it is because really in past campaigns, I rarely hear candidates, whether at a parliamentary level or presidential level, I rarely hear them speak about prison reform. It's never really on people's agendas, and I'm just thinking, those of you mwebale ngumfa mwebali mwalikwatapo omuntu owakwebati ali mchifungo nango alelo kuya ku court but alefuma ku chifungo, you will understand why I needed to have this discussion. Mulamona ifyo bafuma abantu besu nangulira twatwala ka bread mulamona nefe bale moneka mulamona fye imibiri feshchinja insansa na shia and so on and so forth. And when they start telling us some of the stories of if you be kalamulia our flight of land. So I really did want to talk about, because last week you went and you had a very unhappy experience.
Yes.
But let's hear that experience in your own words.
Yeah.
Let's hear about it in your own words.
Patricia, thank you very much. I think you have touched on a subject which of extreme importance in our country, but it never comes to light. The people, our people that you are speaking to in vernacular, and I love that, do not have a voice to come out to a place like this and voice out the condition in which their relatives and family members are living in prisons. It is a scandal. The prison service in this country is a scandal. I've never been in police cells myself, and I've never been to prison. But my heart breaks. It hurts. And I'm surprised that those of my colleagues in the opposition, and even those that are in the ruling party today, that have been in those conditions, do not think that this is a subject that we must explore and interrogate. HH was in Mukobeko for 127 days. When he came out, when he became president, he tried to explain his experience at Mukobeko. And the only thing that he highlighted most was that inmates sleep on the bare floor. And he said the UPND government was going to deal with that and buy inmates mattresses, or buy mattresses for prisons. I don't know how many mattresses they've been able to buy. Last week, and I want to start with my experience. Last week, I go to prison to go and see a client. Okay? Who was convicted on a Monday, and I go there on Wednesday to go and take further instructions regarding his bail application.
Do you want to tell us which prison you went?
Chumbakaida here in Lusaka. So I get there, and I find this prison guard on duty who slides, that pigeonhole. Okay, and he says to me, yes, can I help you? And I said, well, I've come to see my client. My name is Wynter. I tell him. He says, oh, hold on. Shuts that car pigeonhole. And in the meantime, people are walking in and out. comes back. No, in fact, it doesn't even come back. 10 minutes later, I go back and knock. Opens again. He says, no, hold on. Third time, I said to him, listen, will you tell me whether I'm going in or not? Because this is too much. I've been standing outside here this long, and you keep on saying, wait. Whom are you consulting inside there who has not given you the answer? As I'm talking to him, a young lady in uniform comes and introduces herself as the legal counsel for the prisons. And she says to me, no, sir, I think there is a rule now that you need to bring a letter of introduction from your law firm if you have come here as a lawyer. I said, really? He says, yes. I said, so I go back to my office, go and write a letter introducing myself, that the bearer of this letter is Wynter Kabimba, is an employee of WM Kabimba and Company. I said, is the problem that you have not recognized me? Or are you saying that I'm an imposter as a lawyer? What is the problem? What change will that letter bring about to resolve this matter? He says, no, sir, that is the rule. In the meantime, I've been to Mwembechi prison several times to see other clients there. That rule is not there. I was at Mukobeko prison to go and see Chitotera, Chilangwa, the group they call the Kawambwa 6. There was no rule of that nature. And a senior man comes, and I thought he was going to resolve the problem. He agrees with the young officer and said, I asked him the same question. What is it that letter is going to do? Do you know me? He said, yes, sir, I know you. So I said, so what is the problem? No, because, we have inmates here that have been abused by lawyers that come here purporting that, so we want to know that you are a member of LAS. I said, hasn't LAS given you a list of the lawyers that have the right of audience before court this year? He says no. So I said, listen, keep your prison, I'm going away. I said, keep your prison, I'm going away. Because this is ridiculous now. So I actually became rude because I had lost my temper. I was not going there for myself. I was going there to see a client who has not been granted bail. If he had been granted bail, I would be dealing with his issue of the appeal outside prison. But he has not been granted bail. So my duty as his counsel is to go and take instructions from him while in prison. So the officer says to me, no, sir, please come in, but please next time remember, to come with a letter. He insists. So we go in. I find my client there. And I said to him, I need a room, lawyer-client privilege. I need a room where I can sit with my client. He says, no, we don't have such a room. So he's showing me a bench where there are 6 to 10 other visitors shouting, talking to inmates, behind the wire mesh. And I said to him, I used to come here in 1997, 98 when Dean Mungombo was here, and I was representing him in that treason trial. There was a room here, somewhere here, where we used to sit with Dean. He says, no, it's not there. Okay? Chimbokayela, the oldest prison, I don't call them correctional facilities, they are prisons, where the colonial masters decided that this would be the prison for pre-independence, fellows, is still the same today. They talk about human rights, and the right of a client with his lawyer is not provided for. Okay? So I talk to my client. When I get to the office, now listen to this part. When I get to the office, I ask my 2 lawyers there. They said, "Oh, we just walked in there. We just produced our NRCs. They didn't ask for a letter from us. So I said they didn't. They said no. So then I started saying to myself, so this is not about the rules. This is about me as an individual. And the reason, they don't want people like me to come out and tell the world what is going on there. Now, here's what is going on there. The inmates, Patricia, are actually being fed by their families and friends, who all feed the prison warders. So when you take food there, you don't give it to the inmate, you give it to the prison authorities. And the practice is that they take a part of that food themselves and give the remaining portion to the inmates. So they're keeping people in prison. So they're feeding the prison warders and the guys that are on death. So when these inmates, like my client and others that have just gone there now, when they are there, the Malanges, and their families take food in the morning, they take food there in the afternoon. They have to share that food with everybody. And if they didn't do that,
is that such a bad thing, sharing food?
No, it's not a bad thing. But you see, the government is supposed to feed these people. Okay, if you are going to deprive me of my freedom, and you think I've wronged this country, and you put me in prison, fair enough, that is justice. But you can't put me there to go and disturb me. I think that is unfair. You can't put me in prison to go and disturb me. I think that is extremely unfair. So that is what is going on in that. Now, when Michael Sat and I decided in 2014 that we are going to set up the Commission of Inquiry on Legal and Justice Reforms. That's exactly what we had in mind. I said to President Sata, we need to give the terms of reference to this Commission of Inquiry that are broad. So they were going to include reforms in the judiciary. The Commission of Inquiry was going to hear representations on reforms in the prison service and reforms in the police service, because the three are interconnected. Okay? That was the idea. So the idea was that the Commission of Inquiry will go around to each and every prison, and even big cells like the Kawatas and Livingstone and the Woodlands, go and hear the story from the inmates themselves. You can't sleep there, because my client was showing me a small room, and said there is 125 of us in that space, maybe 2 meters by 3 meters. 125 people crammed there as if they are on a ship to the United States during the slavery time. And you call that human rights, and you call that democracy. So what would democracy, Patricia, mean when those that are perceived to have wronged society are being treated in this manner? What does this, democratic space is shrinking that we keep on singing about, in the opposition, against the treatment of these people, in prison?
State Council, is the problem, therefore, not necessarily with the prison, the building, the Chimbokaila, and the staff who are there? Is the problem not more systemic? Does it not have a very long trail to where it's originating from?
Yes, you're absolutely right. This is not a UPND problem. This is not a PF problem. This has been building up over many, many years. The problem is that successive governments, none of these governments has raised the issue of the human rights of inmates.
But we have the Human Rights Commission, and I know, at least in years gone by, that I think they used to make yearly visits to prisons.
They still do. Yeah. They still do. but
nothing changes.
Nothing changes. They still do, but nothing changes. But look, the point I have, I'm making is this: that you have leaders today that have gone to prison. You have leaders today in UPND. You had leaders in PF that had gone to prison. In fact, the theory, is that you can't be president unless you've been to prison. So I ask them, which prison did Edgar Lungu go to? Which prison did Mwanawasa go to?
Right.
Okay. So, and yet, when they come out, Michael Sata was at Kamala for 40 days. I went to to pay him a visit there, and I found we had ordered paint, and they were painting, the inside of the prison, because the place was very dirty. It hadn't had any coat of paint for years. The point that I'm making, Patricia, is that we can't allow this to go on. We can't allow this to go on. A society must be judged by the way it treats those that have wronged that society. Just like in personal life, you are judged by, in terms of character, by the way you treat those who have wronged you. You forgive them, you mend fences with them, you do whatever. You put the thing in the past. Those guys there cannot put that treatment in the past. They are hurt. The drug issue in there is terrible. I'm told, Patricia, there are guys that go there, get hooked, to drugs. They come out, they can't find the drugs. They would rather commit an offense to go back, because there they get free drugs.
How?
Okay.
State Council.
Yes, true story. True story.
Free drugs.
So they go back there and go and get free drugs, because outside they have to buy. Now, if that commission of inquiry had been allowed to proceed the way we had planned it with the President Michael Sata, I'm sure would have seen some reforms. Maybe not 100%, but people would be treated like human beings in prison. It is terrible.
State Council, the reason really why I wanted us to really focus on this, like I said, is because I hardly ever hear particularly presidential candidates talk about prison reform, and yet, and niziwa muliko amene mumverera even now as I'm speaking, kapena ni pasande muzankala muyenda kuchimboka ila kuja muzashokewa na zuba panja. Yes. Paja mwankala finally basegula ka bread kanu batenge bakasegule pakati kuona ati simnafake vili vonse pakati, and then muntu wanu akachoka paja mrefa yokulila ifyale moneka.
Yes.
Ngamya ati the whole week in Kalibana Diapavazona because there was nothing or whatever, I couldn't get to the chipot fast enough or whatever it is that happens. But like you said, and it's starting from somewhere. Every day we are churning people into the prison every single day.
Yes.
State Council, 90% of them are poor people.
Yes.
And how do we explain that?
Yes. Even just if you went there, Patricia, you go, exactly. You go on that western side and go and see. Look at these dejected, poor, guys from Kalingalinga, from Chiboria, waiting to be given an opportunity, just to say hello to their family members that are behind there. Go in that room, where they have to go and meet, you find this one is screaming here, this one is... There's even no courtesy of saying they can't buy 5 year bangene so that they create, space. No, they are just bundled, in there. The others are standing outside, God knows when they are going to get their turn. You can't have a society like this. I refuse. You can't. And call justice, and you call this, human rights?
I asked you a question. Is it that the poor do not know how to defend themselves? That's why there's so many of us in prisons. Is it that?
But look, this thing is also economic. Okay, there's an economic dimension to it. Okay? Go and get the statistics in the United States. There are 15 million black American prisoners in American prisons. They outnumber the whites. Not because they are criminals by their DNA structure. Okay? But because of the economic situation. They live in a society where the blacks are on the fringes of the economy of that country. So how else do they survive? They end up committing crimes. That's what is happening in this country. A boy of 18, he has no job. He can't even get a piece work. If he gets something, he ends up, even if you just call them to the house to come and do a piece work, they end up stealing from you. You report to the police. The police are so hard on these boys and not on others. I got a call from the village 3 days ago. One of my cousins said, look, somebody came and ran their vehicle into the house of my children. I've been going to the police for the last 2 weeks. Because the fellow whose children are involved is somebody with authority in the community. Patricia, you can cry when you look at the families there. Poor fellow, they don't even have money to be taking food, there for every day. They don't have the money. They are struggling themselves. And the justice system can't look after the inmates. It can't be justice. It can't be right.
So as someone who is going to be on the ballot and in view of time, State Council, what would you suggest would bring some, maybe not instant, but some short-term relief to the situation in our prisons? So what would be your suggestion?
Firstly, the sentencing system. Okay? The sentencing system must be reformed.
And you commit to that as Economic Front?
Yes. It's not everybody that has been convicted who must have a custodial sentence. Even a loaf of bread. Mm-hmm. You must put them behind bars. I think that is not right. So there must be drastic reforms in the sentencing system. But you see, that is just one angle. That is just one angle. Kaunda did something very good and set up the legal aid department, which has produced outstanding lawyers in this country, judges, and other people. It is the last department on the scale of other institutions in this country today. Why? Because it is defending the poor. Nobody can speak for the poor. Okay?
So it's not overlooked, but it will never get as much as other departments.
No. And what do we do? These donors come in and tell us the priority is to put computers and microphones in the High Court. And then jumps at that. And not the financing of the legal aid department. Okay? So all these piecemeal kind of projects going on in the police, going on in the prison service, and the Ministry of Justice that are completely disconnected. And who determines that? The donors themselves, the owners of the money. So we're going to give you the money, here, conduct workshops on human rights, in the police. Okay? And nobody talks about it. Ambassadors have gone, these diplomats, they have gone to Chimbakaira. They would not accept that arrangement in their own countries. They wouldn't. When I was Minister of Justice, I was writing letters to Balombechi Besakunda as acting Chief Justice. 2-3 letters in a week. Delayed, Supreme Court, judgments. We even had one scandal where the whole record of appeal after these guys that had been convicted, of aggravated robbery in the High Court had appealed. They were in Chimbakaira for 10 years, and the record of appeal went missing. So they write to me as Minister of Justice, tell us what we should do. Okay? Now, the options were they go for a retrial. They start again after 10 years of being in Chimbogele prison. Or get acquitted outrightly. I left that problem still pending. So this is the environment of the poor. Patricia, you know, we ought to think about these poor people. Firstly, they're in the majority of this, you know, in this country. Even those of us have been doing research, you know, through my mono podcasts, you know. I was shocked to discover that only 2% of Zambians speak English. 2% of the 20 million. Okay? The others are completely outside the discourse of what is right and wrong in this country.
Manje State Council mwakamba chizungu from A to B.
No, but you know, manje chimbogana ngaika mbe muchinyanja, but the other things, human rights, ivu tamuchibemba olo you know. Amara samuka. Insambu
fyali lwa.
Ah, fyali lwa, you know. So this is this is the problem. Okay? This is the problem. Patricia, if you went to prison, I refuse myself to call that correctional facility. There's nothing that you correct there. You just get bitter people walking out of that building. There's nothing to correct. Nothing. Okay?
Okay, so my question still stands. In the short term, what can bring some kind of relief, even now when you are not in the government in office, even now when there is the UPND, what would you suggest to them?
The granting of bail is discretionary on the part of the magistrate and on the part of the judge. Okay? It is in the discretion of the court. If the prison service and the judiciary coordinated as the state institutions, surely they should be saying to the judges and the magistrates, can you slow down on custodial sentence? Can we introduce other conditions for bail that will ensure that these guys don't jump bail, you know, they don't disappear, they don't, you know, jump borders. I mean, I'm sure you've been following what is happening in France, you know, with the Sarkozy, the former president of France. He's been convicted to 5 years in prison. They convicted him, sentenced him, and sentenced him, I think, at the beginning of October or sometime last year. He was told, go home and come and report yourself to start your sentence on the 21st of October. Okay? So the guy goes home. He says, on the 20th of October, says bye to his wife, kisses the wife. Okay? Je t'aime, he says in French, I love you. Okay? And then the following day, you know, he gets his kabang with clean clothes in there, you know, toiletries, you know, and everything, and walks into prison. Look at how our people are bundled in that Kasaranga, you know, immediately after conviction. Immediately after conviction. They are not even given time to recover from the shock. Okay? The guy is walking from the courtroom into the Kasaranga. There are police officers here. They handcuff him. Why? Why do you have to lead me into the Kasaranga in handcuffs? From the courtroom, and you have two officers, one officer armed, and you want to handcuff me to go and jump in that truck. So the whole prison arrangement, the whole justice is intended to humiliate other human beings, not to punish them, but break, you know, their spirits. You know, their spirit, their will, you know, as part of punishment. That's not how you make people reform. And then they go and walk into this building called the Correctional Service.
You very quickly, you talked about legal aid and how it's meant to help the very poor of the poor. But I also find that maybe legal aid is understaffed, because very often I have seen young men and women stand in court and, do you have a lawyer? No.
Yeah.
Yes. And this child, who has at the most maybe 7 years of schooling, is now trying to address a very, for lack of better, a very well-educated system where the magistrate is so well read and blah blah blah, and he doesn't even know the right words to use to defend himself.
No.
He ends up incriminating himself more and more and more, and I'm just thinking, is it that legal aid is overwhelmed? What is going wrong?
One, it is understaffed, terribly understaffed. It can't keep lawyers there because of poor conditions of service and poor salaries. Okay. Secondly, it is underfunded, like I said earlier. Okay. So a lawyer wants to go to court from legal aid, but they don't have a motor vehicle to get to court. Even if they wanted to jump on a yango, there is no money from the accountant. I mean, I was attached to the legal aid department when I was doing my LOPI. You know what is now called the ZIALE. I was attached to legal aid. Patricia, we never made anybody pay. They just walked in and walked out. I remember one old man from Zabuka coming, and he was allocated to me as a client, and I said, what is your problem, sir? He said, I want to sue my neighbor because he has run away with my wife, and I can see my wife in the next house through the window.
State council.
No, I'm giving you. He started his career in the legal aid department. When he graduated, when he left NIPA, his first employer was the legal aid department, and he went to Livingston to go and work, So we stayed that time because the conditions, Kaunda made sure that the legal aid department is financed fully to defend the indigent, the poor people that can't speak English, and who feel intimidated by the environment in the courtroom.
And the reason why I have taken this time to speak about this is because whichever way we look at it, it is this very, very, very ababene bosauka bali monga ine ndiye bamene timatamangira ku bamene timafuna mavoti.
Yes, that's it. That's the
on the other hand, ngati bapezeka ma problems kulibe chicho chamene chizabatandiza ku side kulibe.
Not even the MP. They can't even go to the MP, because the MP can get that fellow, put him in his car, drive him to the legal aid department, and say, can you please help me? And the legal aid department, I'm going to ask for 250 kwacha, I'm told these days. The MP can pay, who is now minister. They can pay for the poor fellow, but they don't do that. They only want this fellow when August has come, and now they have to run around so that he go and they can even give them a lift now in their expensive car. Before that, no. Simply
as maybe a very, very controversial point, and CDF going to be increased to 40 million next year, next budget cycle, and here is legal aid totally unable to function.
Yes.
Are we really getting our priorities? These same people whom we say the CDF is going to cure so many of their problems in the community, and which hopefully it should do, but when they find themselves before justice, even the institution put there for them is totally insufficient to deal with their issues. Is there a better way of using national resources? Can we try and balance and make sure that when our people face justice, the people whom we want to vote for us, they can find something there?
Is how we come to understand punishment in our society. What does it mean? What do you do with somebody who has wronged society? Okay, the punishment should be such that they appreciate it, that I'm wrong, and the society has treated me fairly, so that I don't get back, to commit the same wrong. You know, and I've already given an example of a human to human, relations. If you are going to punish somebody who has wronged you in a manner that then you will not restore the relationship. Okay, and the issue of the correlation between the punishment and the human psychology has been interrogated over the years. Okay, when in 1918 the First World War ended and Germany lost, and Germany was made to pay huge sums of reparations, even as its economy was down to zero. Germany had been bombed. George Bernard Shaw, the playwright, attended the Allied meeting in the city of Versailles in France. And he warned these guys, the Allied forces, and said, if you are going to treat Germany by way of humiliating the Germans, I can assure you that the second war coming.
And it did.
That was in 1919. Okay, the Second World War broke in 1939, and thank God George Bernard Shaw was still alive. George Shaw was still alive, and he was vindicated. He was not a papa, nothing. He was just a playwright, but he understood the human psychology and the link between the punishment and the one who is punishing and the one who is receiving the punishment.
We'll take a very, very... My guest this morning is Economic Front President Wynter Kabimba State Council. This morning we have spent time speaking about the hornet's nest that State Council stirred last week when he made public his experience as he tried to see a client at Chimbokaila. And obviously there was a response from the correctional services and so on and so forth. But I just felt that this was an important issue to speak about because there is so much suffering for poor people, starting from the justice system, yes, all the way to correctional services. Abantu besu balachula sana. And that is why I really wanted us to spend some time talking about it. And when the State Council is in plot 1, he has promised us that there will be adequate reform. But very quickly now, I think it was last week, at the beginning of this week, when the President saw in the members of the technical committee to oversee the collection of views on the proposed Bill 7 around the country. And obviously, there's so much being talked about around that, starting with, did the Constitutional Court not already rule on this? State Council, can you put us in the clear vis-a-vis what the Constitutional Court said in that matter and what is happening now? Very quickly for our people to understand.
I think the gist of the Constitutional Court, where it disagreed with the government, was to the effect that the process did not have the support of the people.
Okay.
So it can only be validated if you take it back to the people.
Which is what they are doing now.
Which is what they are doing now.
Okay.
Okay, so they are doing this to be seen to
fulfill
compliance
that, yeah,
with
that,
the order or the judgment of the Constitutional Court.
Okay.
Okay, so the message is, look, we respect judicial orders, so we have done.
Okay.
Now, if you are going to have a technical committee such as that one, then the terms of reference must be made public. So we, as members of the public that are going to submit our views to the technical committee, must know the parameters of the technical committee. Okay? I don't want to go there and start saying things that are not part of the mandate, of the technical committee. So it's important that the terms of reference are made public.
And they have not yet been made public.
At least I haven't seen any of that myself.
Okay.
The the other point related to that is that as you make the technical committee terms of reference public, we want to know the period which has been allocated to it, to cover
the whole country.
The 10 provinces. Because that is what the Constitutional Court judgment suggests. That everybody must be heard. So we need a schedule of the sittings of the technical committee. Okay? Thirdly, the technical committee should not be going to find organized groups of people, which is what they were doing when they first introduced this Bill 7. Okay? So a government official, Minister of Justice, as an example, would arrive and he finds, this group of people, chiefs there, this one there, and then the minister starts telling them how good the intentions of government are. Okay? This is in your interest, this is for you, so support government. That is not the idea, but that's not the environment under which the technical committee is supposed to operate. The environment of a technical committee is, Patricia, that it will announce that will be sitting at Mansa Community Hall, for example, or Mansa Council, in the council chamber, on the following dates. So the people go there one by one, or in groups. They walk there in groups, but when they go before the technical committee, they go as individuals, because what they say must be recorded verbatim. So when the report comes,
what does verbatim mean?
Word for word.
2% English.
Word for word. Mukwai inena isa mukulanda ati ichichi constitution ichi chile chumfwa bwino nomba ndefu yati ba MP ingatwa abasala bale mpena ko impia. That must be recorded verbatim.
For every person.
For every person. And when the report comes out, it comes out in the structured as follows, Patricia. Firstly, there is the summary of the submissions. Alongside the summary of the submissions, there are volumes of the verbatim submissions, province by province, individual by individual.
So, State Council, I really should be able to go into that report and find my name.
Yes, and what you said.
And what I said.
And what you said.
Okay.
Okay? Your name and what you said.
And the date. Zina langa lieno nkalapo. Patisha chibiliti anabula padeya anakamba chi CDF musipasa kwa media houses.
CDF nayo sankaje beku machechi izikana na kwa media houses. Okay? So we'll take this as a constitutional issue. That is the end product of that. And then so you have the verbatim documents, you have the summary of the common issues,
common areas
of submission. Then after that, you have the draft amendment bill, which is presented. So there are 3 sets of documents to be presented to the president on that day to epitomize the end of the process by the technical committee. That is how it is done. And it has been done like this, as a practice, as a convention. And that's the only way you can do it. So you can't shortcut it. You can't go and get groups of individuals. I mean, if you are going to mobilize people, you are going to select those people that you want to hear what you want to hear. But the actual, starting from That is how come. That is how come in the Chona Commission, Patricia. If you read the Chona Commission, it is recorded that the Zambians overwhelmingly rejected the one-party state. That's what you find in the Chona Commission of 1972-73. That the Zambians, they couldn't, UNIP couldn't skew it. They couldn't change it. They couldn't manipulate it. It is recorded that the Zambians overwhelmingly rejected the one-party state. But nevertheless, Kaunda went ahead and introduced the one-party state. Because the verbatim, transcripts were available. Okay? So, that is my experience about this. That is my knowledge about this.
So I just want to now, for the purposes of my listeners, to be very clear that pameneta fika pano stage 1 ya chitika committee wa president vanapanga na kukashita swear in ava vantu vamene vazambomverera vamene tikamba ise, but we don't know the boundaries of what we can say or what we can submit about and what we cannot submit about, because tikali kwembekeza ma terms of reference. Is that correct?
Yes. Yes, and also the period. Aba bantu bamene bazamba kwenda pakafika kumumbwa district bazankala masiku
madezi angati. So atingati nina kanchito kumawala kuja kuminda kuja naziba nati aba bantu bazankala chabe 3 days. Nina anachokako 1 day so ati nabapeza bakalipana.
O ingati niliko no kulusaka na misa chite ino ya kulusaka
ningatamangire hapa kabwe
oro pachiranga chiranga is a district or ningatamangire kukabo kamba to nabwera because you are not restricted where you are coming from as long as you are a citizen. Nabwera kukamba ko unkani yaso.
Very quickly, State Council, you said for as long as I'm a citizen, so tapali disqualification, so long as I'm a citizen I can submit.
Yes, this is not like an election. It's not like an election where you're only eligible if you are 18 or 20. As long as you're a citizen, even a girl of 15, a boy of 15 can go and submit before the technical committee. Okay. They are not disqualified. But vantu vaina kuziva kuti aba vantu bazabwera liti kuno kumanza, bazabwera liti kuno kuluwingu. Okay? Aba bantu kodi mpamvu zamene bapasiwa kuti inchito yanu imumufika apa panapasiwa mpamvu za bwanji na boma. Okay? Those things must be in the terms of reference. Because if we are not happy with the terms of reference, we can tell government, this is it won't achieve anything. So the citizens, if really you want this process to be a people's process, the citizens have a right to say to government, we are not happy with the terms of reference.